Trae Young and Atlanta. Why the separation now feels inevitable.
For years, the Atlanta Hawks have been defined by one central idea. Everything revolved around Trae Young. The offense, the pace, the roster construction, and even the long-term vision were shaped around his skill set. That era, however, appears to be reaching a natural conclusion, not because of one single event, but because of a growing body of evidence that Atlanta functions differently, and perhaps more sustainably, without him.
This isn't a sudden pivot. It's the result of months of quiet evaluation, internal tension, and on-court data that challenged long-held assumptions about what this team actually needs to become competitive in the Eastern Conference. What changed on the court?
When Young went down with a knee injury early in the season, expectations around Atlanta dropped immediately. Instead, something unexpected happened. The Hawks played more balanced basketball. The defensive effort improved. The ball moved more freely. Most notably, Jalen Johnson emerged as a legitimate foundational piece, showing growth on both ends of the floor and thriving in a system that didn't orbit a single high-usage guard. Atlanta didn't look like a team surviving without its star. It looked like a team discovering an alternative identity. That context matters, because when Young returned, the contrast became impossible to ignore. The offense slowed. Defensive vulnerabilities resurfaced. Lineups that had previously looked connected began to fracture again. The issue wasn't effort, it was fit. The contract clock and strategic pressure. Beyond basketball, timing has become a critical factor. Young's contract situation places real pressure on Atlanta's front office. With a looming player option and no long-term extension in place, the Hawks are facing a familiar dilemma. Commit to a massive financial future around a player whose value league-wide appears uncertain, or act before leverage disappears entirely. Young is still an elite offensive creator, but the league has evolved. Teams are increasingly prioritizing size, switchability, and defensive versatility at guard positions. High-usage, defense-limited stars no longer command the same universal demand they once did, especially when paired with top-tier salary expectations. That shift helps explain why interest around the league has been noticeably restrained, why the market feels cold. In previous seasons, a four-time All-Star point guard would spark aggressive bidding. This time, conversations have been quieter. Even teams struggling to generate offense have shown hesitation, largely due to concerns about defense, contract size, and roster balance. Atlanta, meanwhile, is not in a position to wait indefinitely. Allowing Young to reach free agency without clarity would risk losing control of the outcome altogether. From a management perspective, exploring trade paths now isn't panic, it's risk management. The Washington question. One team that naturally enters the conversation is the Washington Wizards. Washington is in a different phase entirely. Their priorities are flexibility, future assets, and long-term upside rather than immediate contention. Expiring contracts and cap relief create a scenario where absorbing a large salary becomes feasible, especially if draft capital or younger pieces are attached. From a basketball standpoint, the fit is imperfect. Young's defensive limitations would exacerbate existing perimeter issues. But from an asset accumulation standpoint, Washington has little incentive to avoid risk if it accelerates a broader rebuild strategy. That distinction is important. This would not be a move built around winning now. It would be a move about controlling timelines, Atlanta's bigger picture. For the Hawks, moving on from Young wouldn't be about downgrading talent. It would be about reshaping the team's structure. Without a max-level, ball-dominant guard dictating everything, Atlanta gains flexibility in lineups, in salary planning, and in long-term vision. It also allows the front office to lean further into players who have already shown growth within a more collective framework. Defensive accountability improves, offensive responsibility spreads, and perhaps most importantly, the organization regains the ability to adapt rather than commit. What this moment really represents. This isn't about blame. It's about alignment. Trae Young is still a high-level NBA player. In the right environment, with the right roster, he can still drive elite offense. But Atlanta no longer appears to be that environment, and pretending otherwise risks stalling both sides. If a trade materializes, it will mark the end of one of the Hawks' most recognizable eras, not with fireworks, but with a quiet acknowledgement that what once made sense no longer does. And in today's NBA, clarity, even uncomfortable clarity, is often the most valuable asset a team can have.